What's up, everybody? Steven here with Neural DSP. And today, by very popular demand, I'm going to show you how I dial in some of Nick Johnston's guitar tones. This time, I did something a little bit different. Instead of constructing the song from scratch, I went to Nick's website and bought the tabs and backing tracks to his song, Remarkably Human. This means that there's going to be lead tracks and presets, but there's going to be no backing tracks in the link in the description. Now, I did this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, as I began to study Nick's music, I found myself really enjoying it. After searching for the tabs to his song online, I found that he actually had the backing tracks available on his website. So I decided to purchase them because I wanted to support him as an artist. This video is not sponsored by or affiliated at all with Nick. If you want his backing tracks, feel free to visit his website and support him as well. Secondly, I wanted to spend more time learning the parts of Remarkably Human that I plan to play. Nick's right-hand technique and feel are so dynamic that they factor into his tone as much as any choice in guitar and amp sim. So I wanted to spend more time exploring and understanding that. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the tones. You'll often find that Nick plays his Strat-style custom Schecter guitar, so I'm going to use this Fender Squier Jazzmaster because it has single coil pickups, which is going to give us a somewhat similar starting point. Obviously, the P90s on this guitar are not going to be exactly the same as Nick's, so I'm going to show you a little trick that you can use to change the tone of your DI, which will get us a little bit closer. Now, you can go about this two different ways. One way is to utilize the overdrive pedal and use that to shape the tone of the DI before it goes into the head, but after messing around with the tones, I realized that I actually had to boost it just a little bit more. So I actually set up a separate instance of the archetype Pliny before my main tone. I utilized the overdrive pedal to brighten the tone with the tone knob. I drew back the level and I turned the drive down entirely. Then I set up the EQ section to brighten up the DI even further. Now, Nick typically uses Mesa Boogie or Friedman amps. So in turn, I'm going to use the Archetype Pliny for some cleans, the Fortin NTS for some grit tones, and then the Archetype Nolly for leads. The real trick to dialing in Nick's tone is to make sure that we're careful with the amount of gain that we add to the signal and at what stage. For example, I can hear in the intro that he's using his fingers to pick the notes very lightly. He does this so that way when he transitions over to using a pick, that note gets far more saturated than the previous notes. For the cleanest tone, I went with the Archetype Pliny's first head. As I mentioned earlier, I used the overdrive to brighten up the tone and lower the output level. Then I set up the EQ section to brighten up the DI even further. That way, when it gets to the head section, the gain just a little bit above noon is going to keep the warmth of the signal but doesn't break it up. And you can hear that the EQ section is just pulling out more of that pick attack and the presence of the notes. For the next tone, I heard just a tiny bit of gain, so I actually decided to switch over to the Fortin NTS. I set up the hex drive to saturate the signal just a little bit while boosting the signal into the clean channel of the Fortin NTS head. And you can see that I left the gain pretty low because the boost from the hex drive is already saturating it just a little bit. After that, I set up a little bit of EQ and effects from another instance of the Archetype Pliny where I just utilized the reverb. Finally, for the lead tone, I used the archetype Nolly's second head and third cabinet. Nick's signal path is pretty simple, so I wanted to try and emulate that within the archetype Nolly as well. Instead of setting up the archetype Pliny beforehand, I just used the first overdrive to brighten the tone and then boost the level into the head. You can see that I left the drive knob on the overdrive pedal completely down because I wanted the saturation to happen at the head exclusively. When dialing in gain on the head, I found it was really useful to listen to the sustained notes. As the note decays, it saturates less and less. Unlike playing a metal-specific lead, the notes won't be very compressed. You'll actually be able to hear them audibly decay before moving on to the next note in the phrase. And this is where the dynamics of Nick's right hand really shine. I'll be honest, the most time-intensive aspect of this episode was re-recording takes in an effort to at least get close to the power of Nick's right hand. He's able to pull such incredible tone out of his strings because of the balance between precision and power of his right hand. Having spent so much time trying to emulate his tone, I realized it might be helpful to try and illustrate the importance of right hand technique. To give you an example, I'll play you a version of one of the passages that I ended up re-recording because I just wasn't pulling out the notes hard enough. You can even see the considerable difference between the transients of the pick attack between the two takes. So that's how I would dial in some Nick Johnston guitar tones. This was an incredibly fun episode to work on, not only because it reminded me of the importance of right hand technique, but it also introduced me to a new favorite guitarist, which I'll be listening to a lot of in the future. As always, links to the leads and the presets are in the description down below. I'll also leave a link to Nick's website in case you want to purchase the tabs and the backing track for yourself. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Please leave a like and don't forget to share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for notifications on when we upload our videos. Comment down below and let me know what you thought of this video or if you have artists or guitar players that you want me to dial in next. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.